This is an attempt to give you the simplest Japanese lesson in the world. So everyone, do you know what's important when making the sentence in Japanese? Let's take the sentence, I read manga, as an example. In English and in many other European languages, the structure often goes subject, verb, then object. But in Japanese, the basic structure usually goes subject, object, and verb in that order. So you'd say, 私は漫画を読む. I read manga. 私 means I, and 読む is the verb to read. As you can see, one of the key features of Japanese is that the verb comes at the end of the sentence. Here's something important to keep in mind. In many languages, the verb tends to be the core of the backbone of the sentence, but in Japanese, what really matters is not just the verb, it's the idea of the predicate, or jutsugo in Japanese. Predicates in Japanese can be verbs, adjectives, or a noun followed by the copula, like desu or da. Because of this, Japanese sentence structures are generally divided into the three types: verb predicate sentences, adjective predicate sentences, and noun predicate sentences. Earlier, we looked at the sentence 私は漫画を読む, and since the predicate here is a verb, this is what we call the verb predicate sentence. By the way, in Japanese, just about a sentence can be said in both a formal and informal form. For example, 私は漫画を読む is the informal version. 私は漫画を読みます is a formal version. Now, if we replace the predicate with かわいい, which means cute, then it becomes the adjective predicate sentence. So 私はかわいい is informal, and 私はかわいいです is a formal version. Finally, when the predicate is the noun, we add something called a copula, like the da or desu, and that gives us a non-predicate sentence. Let's say my name is Luna, then 私は Luna だ is the informal form, and 私は Luna です is the formal one. Of course, Japanese also have a negative forms and the past tense forms that change how the sentence looks, but they all follow predictable patterns. So I put together a conjunction table to help you out. If you're interested, check out the link in the description. Alright, now here's where things get really important. Earlier, we talked about how in Japanese the predicate is basically the core of the sentence. Everything else, like the subject, the object, the location, and the time, gets added around the predicate to give more information. Compared to European languages, the connection between the subject and the predicate in Japanese is much looser. In those languages, the verb often changes based on the subject, but in Japanese, verbs don't change depending on the subject at all. That's why Japanese, the subject isn't essential, it's just one of the several elements, and that's also why it's often left out completely by subjects. Instead, you usually expected to figure out who or what the subject is based on the context of the conversation. Now, let's talk about something unique to Japanese. Particles. 助詞. Particles always come after nouns, and they tell us what role each noun is playing in the sentence. Let's take a look at the sentence together. In this sentence, there are 4 nouns: 葵, コーヒー, 庭, and 友達. And the predicate, the part that gives the action, is the verb 飲む, to drink. Let's go over what each word means. Aoi is the girl's name. Since she's the one doing the drinking, she's the subject of the sentence. So we attach the particle wa to mark her as the topic. There's also another particle, ga, that can mark the subject too, so it's a bit more complicated. Well, save that explanation for another time. Next is kohi, which is just coffee. same as in English. Since it's the thing Aoi is drinking, it's the object, so we use the particle wo to mark it. Then we have niwa, which means garden. This tells us the place where Aoi is drinking the coffee, so we use the particle de, which marks the location of the action. Finally, there's tomodachi, meaning friend. Because this friend is drinking coffee together with Aoi, we use the particle to. It shows someone you're doing an action with, kind of like with in English. So when we put it all together, we got 葵はコーヒーを庭で友達と飲む. That's a full sentence. And this is exactly how Japanese particles work. They show us the relationship between each nouns and the predicate. By the way, since you clicked on this video, you probably already heard this before, but Japanese actually uses 3 writing systems: hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Most Japanese words can be written using kanji. Of course, there are also words that can't be written in kanji, so they are written only in hiragana. A good example of this is the particles we talked about earlier. Those are always written in hiragana. On top of that, foreign origin words are generally written in katakana. Then, that wraps up this attempt to explain Japanese in the simplest way possible. I also offer private lessons, and you can reach out to me via email or DM on Instagram. If you're interested, feel free to get in touch anytime. See you next time.